Hey everybody, how's it going? It is Joe, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be giving a review of Sleeping Dogs, the 2012 game by Square Enix. Now, I am actually playing the updated version 2014. They came out with Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition, which was basically just a graphical upgrade for the PS4 and Xbox One generation of consoles. If you bought this game on Steam or anywhere else on PC, you would be playing the Definitive Edition nowadays. So that's what I'm playing, and the graphics are actually pretty good, but first I want to go over the story. So this is going to be no spoilers, because I want to be able to tell you if this game is worth playing in 2022. So overall, the story is actually pretty good. You're basically an undercover cop. Your name is Wei Shen, and you're going against this organized crime, mafia, cartel, whatever you want to call it, called the Sunonyi, and your job is basically to infiltrate them and to take them down from the inside. There's a whole backstory as to why you are incentivized to take them down, and I think it's really interesting, and I think that the story does a really good job at sucking you in from the beginning. You're playing both sides throughout the story, so you're going to have some missions where you're acting as the police, and you're doing some missions where you're committing crimes. With each mission grading on how you're doing in both. So, for example, if you were to destroy some of the city landscape, knocking down things, that's going to hurt your score as a cop, and whenever you do any kind of crime, that is going to increase your score as a criminal. And how you unlock skills in both of the categories is actually by having the highest possible score in both categories. So you got to mix and match as much as you possibly can, which is a really good gameplay element that I'm really liking. But more on the story, I think it was actually pretty good. Characters are also very good, and the voice acting is fantastic. Major actors that have never really been, and actresses that have never been in any kind of games, like Emma Stone was in this game, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, but all of the voice actors are really, really good. It was also a believable enough story. Even though obviously the game is fictitious, it is somewhat based on reality and the real-life organized crime that goes on in Hong Kong, and I think that it was really good. The only problem I had with the story was that it was a little bit slow to start, but by about halfway through, less than halfway through, I found myself fully engrossed in it, and I just wanted to get that story done as soon as possible. So now onto the gameplay. I'm going to start with the driving, which is what you see I'm doing right now. Driving is overall fine. I didn't find it very noticeable, but it also isn't bad. Sometimes the cars can be a little bit harder to control than the bikes or motorcycles, but that's kind of what you expect in any kind of video game, and overall, I found the driving to be pretty fun, though maybe not as fun as GTA-style games. The melee combat is fantastic, and most of the combat that you're going to be doing throughout the game is going to be melee hand-to-hand. So you start out with a certain limited set of moves, and as you level up both as a cop and as part of the Sunonyi, and you collect collectibles scattered throughout the map, you're going to unlock more combat abilities and more moves to be able to do when you're in melee combat. I would say probably about 70% of the combat that you're doing is melee in this game. And as somebody that doesn't really have that much experience or didn't have that much experience with melee combat before playing this, I found it to be really, really good. I've seen a lot of comparisons online to Batman Arkham, if you've ever played that before, so maybe that's something to keep in mind. You can get by with just a couple of melee combat moves and the counter, which is probably the most powerful move in the game. But it does encourage you to learn more moves and to try new things, which is something that I find to be really interesting. The takedowns are also amazing, though they are easily the most graphic part of the game. So if you're somebody that does not like to see a lot of graphic stuff, a lot of blood, maybe don't do the takedowns, because honestly the graphic content isn't that bad aside from that. Gunplay is probably the worst part of the game. You see me doing some gunplay right now. Guns are not accurate for the most part, except for maybe like the assault rifle. The guns are not that accurate. You can see that crosshair is a pretty wide area, no matter if you're moving, if you are standing still, if you're shooting rapid fire, or if you're just shooting one bullet at a time semi-automatic. It's never really perfectly accurate, and I found that to be really unsatisfying, and I found it to be a little bit frustrating whenever I was on a mission that gave me a certain limited amount of ammo, because a lot of the time I'd run out of ammo and having to pick up another gun, and it just created a lot more effort that I thought was a little bit frustrating. However, the cover system was actually really good, especially for a game that's this old, came out 10 years ago. I thought the cover system was really good, and it was pretty good at protecting you from combat, but also didn't feel busted, as there were a lot of different barriers that the enemy's bullets could bust through in the game. So overall, the gameplay is pretty good, though I'd say gunplay is only so-so. The hand-to-hand melee combat is definitely where it's at. So, now for the graphics and sound. The graphics are really good for an old game. You can tell right now this was an originally released game in 2012. The version I'm playing was released in 2014. And it honestly does not look like that old of a game. I am playing it on max settings with the exception of anti-aliasing, which kind of neutered my frame rate whenever I would try to run with anti-aliasing set to extreme. I had to run it on high instead, which is kind of weird considering that this game is 8 years old, this release, and I have a 3090 and an i7. Granted, it's an older i7, but still, my frame rate was in the 30s and 40s whenever that would happen. However, it doesn't seem like there's any kind of performance impacts on console if you're a console gamer, so you shouldn't run into any problems. And even if you do have an older PC, you'll be able to run this game at some settings, and it will still look pretty good. The sound was fine for the most part. I thought that, like I said, the voice acting was really good. The overall gameplay sounds, the gun sounds, it was pretty satisfying, and it was overall good sound, but the mixing was not great, at least the default. Sometimes over everything else, it can be really hard to hear a conversation, which kind of was a killer when it came to certain parts of the story or whenever I had to make a phone call. That was really hard to hear at times. Now, the side content is something that I think is also actually pretty good in this game. There's lots of different kinds of side content. Cop missions, which you just saw before when I had to do a little bit of a raid. There's random missions where you help people out. Maybe you have to chase somebody. Maybe you have to take a car and, drive it into the ocean for some insurance for the person. And there's really a wide variety of the side missions. Another one that you see coming up a lot is the street racing, which was pretty good. Not the best. If you want to race, you should probably play a racing game instead. But considering what this game is, I thought the racing was actually pretty solid. However, the star when it comes to the side content is what I'm doing right now, which is the cases that you have to do. So these cases are pretty much not related to the main story at all, even though I thought that they were at first. But what you basically have to do is you are given some kind of unsolved mystery about Hong Kong, and your job is to act as the HKPD and solve that mystery, which I thought was really good. It usually is about 5 parts to each story, and that's why you don't have to worry about spoilers in this review, because I'm just playing side content. I am not doing any of the main story in here, so you can discover all of that yourself. As far as the glitches go, all the time in older games we see glitches pop up, and that can be really frustrating to deal with. The glitches I thought were actually pretty much minimal. There were a couple times that when I would try to do parkour, which is an aspect of this game, whenever you press the left shift if you're on PC, you can jump over something, you can jump through something. Anytime you're doing any kind of parkour, you're going to do left shift. Sometimes when I would press that, it would send me flying backwards, like maybe 50 feet, 100 feet, something like that. And that was probably the only really glitch that I saw, other than some weird camera shaking and stuff like that. But overall, not a big deal, especially for a game as old as it is. Definitely not a big deal and should not prohibit you from playing this game. So the overall takeaways that I have, if this game is worth it in 2022, I would say, yeah, I think it is worth it. It's a really good game to get regularly when it's on sale through Steam or something like that. You can get it for $3. The normal price is $20, though, and honestly, I think it almost would be worth it for that price. To play the main story, you're probably looking at maybe 10 to 20 hours of gameplay, depending on how much side content you do. Though if you do want to get 100% completion, that's probably going to take you closer to 30 to 40 hours. So while it's not a very long game, and it's not going to take you 100 hours or anything to 100 complete, there is a lot here for you to enjoy. And I think that it's something that if you are into games such as GTA or open world games and you just want a different pace on it, a different look at it, I think Sleeping Dogs is really worth your time if you haven't played it before. The story, I would say, compared to GTA is a lot better. The gameplay, similar, a lot better hand-to-hand, worse with the gunplay, so it really just depends on how you like to play your games. But overall, pretty solid. So with that being said, I think I'm going to wrap this video up soon. I hope that this was a nice video to have for something new. I want to obviously make a lot of those maps kind of videos and geography kind of videos that I've been making, but I also do want to try something out, and I just played this game over the last week, so I thought I'd make a little bit of a review on it as we head into the holiday season. And there's always sales on Steam, so if you ever find this for sale for $3, pick it up and play it. You absolutely aren't going to regret it, and you probably aren't going to regret it for the full $20 either. I'm not sure exactly what the prices are for a console version on like eBay or anything like that, but I can't imagine it's that expensive. It is an old game. So with that being said, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions about this game, I would be happy to answer them down below. And in addition, there's actually like a wiki for this game online that's pretty good. It has a lot of information. So I would encourage you to look at that as well if you want to find out anything specifically. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I hope this was fun for you to make. It was just as fun for me to... hopefully it was fun for you to watch. Hopefully it was just fun for me to make. And yeah, with that being said, I'm going to let you watch some of this hand-to-hand combat for a minute if you want to. But I will see you all later. Let me know if you want to see more of these kind of videos in the future. Peace.